I noticed you cited a bunch in your presentations of sociobiologists, and they were Dawkins, Wilson, Hamilton, Rushton, and Salter. And from what I would guess, they're Gentile by nature. And I was wondering if, in a sense, that there's an underrepresentation of Jews as sociobiologists, and this kind of validates Kevin MacDonald's argument that they don't want to steal anthropology or science towards a white Gentile ethnic nationalism. And so they're kind of standing in the way of science and objective science. Would you say that?
There are definitely well-known Jewish sociobiologists. Robert Trivers is probably the most famous. He's now at, he was at Harvard at the time of E.O. Wilson. He's now at Rutgers, New Jersey. David Barash is another Jewish sociobiologist. I don't know what the frequencies are. Maybe you're right that it is slightly underrepresented. Certainly, I think even before the Hitler era, Jewish psychologists tended not to be as enthusiastic about Darwinism and sociobiology as Europeans. One gets that impression, but I haven't actually seen any breakdown and so on. But in terms of, say today, geneticists, behavior geneticists, it's very represented, it's well represented anyway, I don't know the percentages, by Jewish psychologists. So
it just seemed to me like it validated MacDonald's point that there was that element of, they sense a danger of actually the ethnic nationalism, and that's clear. I would say that.
You know, on the Jewish, I talked about genetic similarity theory and publishing that paper in Nations and Nationalism. Some of the examples I took were from the Middle East, and I think that I just said here about the suicide bombers and the irrationality and so on from the Arab side. But Jewish scientists are really pretty gung-ho about this stuff. For example, they've made the claim that, with evidence, shown the evidence that Jews in Israel, the Jews from Germany who've emigrated there, and the Jews from Iraq who've emigrated there, are more similar to each other genetically than they are to the host countries in which they lived for 2,000 years.
That's the Y chromosome.
No. This is nuclear DNA. There's many studies, many different studies converging on that.
And ironically, they're closely related to the Palestinians also.
That I'm not sure of, but could be. But in any case, the Jewish scientists are quite intrigued by this, the idea that they really are a people. And they recognize it as and this validates them on the one hand as a people. It also has been used to validate their claim to Israel and the Holy Land, that they are a continuation of the same people that were there 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, to counter the argument that they're a European group that have just been colonially exported there. They're saying no, they're returning to the homeland of their ancestors. So they're enamored of this on the one hand, while at the same time recognizing this as a double-edged sword, because the other side of the sword is that, oh my goodness, we are a race, and we are behaving in an ethnically nepotistic fashion. Some Jews are even saying, well, you know, all people are now claiming that they've got Jewish ancestors in the middle of darkest Africa, or way out in China, or small groups in India, and they say, well, you know, we're Jews, and you should bring us to Israel. And because living on welfare or having jobs in Israel is an awful lot better than living in this village out in Nepal. And so typically the rabbis have gone out there and looked to see whether the cultural traditions do or do not seem to be Jewish, and if they are, well, yes, you're Jewish, come and live with us.
Yeah, and they have the right to return.
Right, and some of the doctors are now saying, well, we should test this genetically.
Yeah.
Let's go and see where. So what I'm trying to say is that on the genetic sociobiology argument, there may or may not be disproportions, but they're certainly well represented.
Okay, thank you, sir.